Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to our screening tonight. I'm Ann Durso-Rose, the Associate Director of MATV, Malden's Media Center, and I welcome you all here. We're very excited about tonight's screening. You're going to hear more about what goes behind it, so I'm really just here to welcome you and to introduce our instructor for this program, Tom Flint. So welcome to Tom.
Thank you, Ann. So first of all, I'd like to thank each group and organization that was involved in the creation of this. So I'd like to thank the mayor for hosting us yesterday and allowing us to use your space. Thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Sullivan over there for hosting us on Monday at Malden Fire Station. And is anybody here from the Senior Center? No? Well, thank you to the Senior Center for allowing us to use this space for the screening. And thank you to MATV, of course, for having me as an instructor. It's been a real pleasure. And thank you to you all for coming, and the students as well. So the title of this workshop was Discovery-Based Filmmaking. And can any of you guess as to why we call this Discovery-Based Filmmaking? Any guesses? Yes.
Like self-discovery?
Yeah, I think that's a very big part of the filmmaking process. Essentially what we did was we took a radically different approach to how films are most often made, in which the different stages of the filmmaking process are clearly divided, usually into pre-production, production, and post-production. And I don't know how familiar you all are with that process. But normally what happens during pre-production is that a lot of planning is done. And when I was a student in film school in the US, I was always told about the importance of having a clear vision and knowing what I wanted to say as an artist. But with this workshop, we encouraged our students not to have a clear vision and to try and discover their stories as they were moving along and be inspired by each other's ideas and the locations they were exposed to. So we asked the students to work without scripts, without other pre-production materials like storyboards, to go out around Malden Center to different locations, meet different people, and interact with their environments in ways that they weren't used to. And I told them in the beginning, on the first day, I said, the goal is to not really know what your films are about until they're finished, and to take a much more organic process and have them kind of evolve. So it was a very experimental workshop. The goals were to take creative risks, to collaborate a little bit differently, and to understand more about themselves, their partners, and the world that they're a part of. So I'm sure you'll see a lot of that in their projects, which are fantastic. And they just finished about less than an hour ago. It was down to the wire. So I'll tell you just a little bit about the workshop theme and the parameters that the students were working within. I mentioned that it was essentially discovery-based filmmaking, but it was also problem-based learning, in which when you make a film or you create any kind of art, you're essentially trying to solve a problem. And for this film workshop, we chose the theme of verisimilitude, which is kind of a tricky word, but does anyone know what the meaning is? Yeah, it's not used very often in the English language, but it essentially means the appearance of reality. And as a filmmaker, I'm personally really interested in a lot of the in-between spaces and meaning, the gray areas that we don't always think about. So the goal for this was for the students to interrogate that concept of verisimilitude. What does that mean through the actual process of making their films? So that was the theme that each of the two groups of 4 students was working within, verisimilitude. They had to connect their films to that in some way. Then there were different parameters that each group had to abide by as they were making their films. The first one was that their film had to connect to the theme of verisimilitude. The story parameter was that their film had to have a struggle of some kind of a conflict. So that involved them discussing a lot about the story and how they would actually build that story. But again, it wasn't the case where they could decide what the story was on the first day, because they were visiting different locations each day. So they had to constantly adapt and adjust themselves to whatever they were being exposed to. The cultural parameter was that each group had to include each member's native language. So Malden is very well known in Massachusetts for being an ethnically diverse community. And I think that's something we try to embrace. And I hope that you all got to learn a bit about each other's backgrounds, right? And we also had a locational parameter, which was that each film had to include at least some footage from 3 key locations. The first location was the Malden Fire Department, which we shot at on Monday. And we were there for a couple of hours, and Mr. Sullivan allowed us to explore around the first and second floor. It was a lot of fun. And the second key location was Fellsmere Park, and we were there yesterday. And the third location was at the City Hall, Mayor's office. So thank you for letting us use that as well. And finally, they had the performance parameter, which was each member had to appear in the film in some form. And oftentimes when films are made, you know, filmmaking is seen as a very hierarchical, kind of position-oriented discipline, where you have a director, you have the actor, you have the screenwriter. But we kind of did it a little bit differently, and there were no roles. Each member had to appear, and each member was directing and operating the camera, and it all kind of blended together, like the 3 different stages. Okay? So that's what the workshop was, and it was a 3-day adventure that they went on. And there were, I think, 7-hour days, so pretty intense. But what you're about to see is the result of this workshop. So why don't you give one more round of applause to the students for just completing their films. Excellent. Okay, so why don't we start with Group 1's film.
Wow, it's so good to see you guys.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
What, like 10 years by now?
Yeah, 10 years. So,
What have you been up to? Like, let us know.
okay, since high school, which has been a while, I was really able to follow my dreams.
Wow. What are they?
Well, I was able to pursue my career in conservation.
Great.
I really want to make Earth a greener place. And that's been really fulfilling to be able to meet with all these people and follow my dreams. And plus, my family has been supporting me 100%. And they give me all the support that came unspoken of. I'm very proud.
So happy for you.
My life has been miserable. Never got the chance to pursue my actual dreams of becoming a conservationist. You see, I come from a long line of firefighters, from my dad to my granddad.
有幾多時間培養你做呢個消防員？
Fighting fire has been a part of my family forever. So actually, I was forced to become a firefighter.
So Manuel, what are you up to?
You guys won't even believe how great things have been for me.
Really?
No.
Like what?
Well, as you know, music is my thing, right? So, you know, I've spent so much time just pursuing my goals and my dreams. I've been traveling all over the place, like singing for fans everywhere. And they really adore me and they respect my craft. It's actually pretty great.
Wow. Nice. Amazing.
Man, if they only knew what was really going on. I tried my hardest to make it, and I made it approximately 10 minutes down the road from high school, still living in my parents' basement. Man, it's rough. Nobody understands the struggles that I faced. No one respects me or my craft. Oh, Why? Why is this happening to me? So what have you been up to, Tova?
Well, I'm actually a lawyer for a big-time lawyer firm now, and actually work with the mayor.
Wow. How is it?
It's kind of difficult, but you know, it's really fun. I do a lot of hard work. I actually helped the mayor win an argument.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
So what about you, Delia? What have you been up to?
Well, let me tell you, it was awesome. I went to Paris and I studied under like the best haute couture people ever. It was so awesome.
Really?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there. It was just amazing. I learned a lot.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oui, oui, monsieur, le nouveau ligne de vêtements est presque fini. Il y a juste 2-3 ajustements qu'il faut faire, mais le reste c'est totalement bon. Non, non, je l'ai pas reçu.
If Paris is the jungle, then yeah, I spent a lot of time there. After my plane crash and I got stuck in some random jungle, my life has been horrible. It was hot and stuffy, and the closest thing I got to a minx coat was the straw pelt of some weird Wolverine bear thing. You know, they're oh wow.
Like, look at my feet. I literally.
If I put my back to I can't reach the floor. Oh wow.
Like, look at my feet. I literally.
If I put my back to I can't reach the floor.
If this group wants to come up to the front, let's give them another round of applause. Okay. Unfortunately, one of their group members, Sammy, had to go home early. But yes, would you be able to bring up the PowerPoint, Maceo? Great. Now, one of the things we did as part of this project was we had each of the groups today, as they were working on their editing, put together a PowerPoint presentation to discuss their actual process. Because when a film is made, the other story that takes place other than what's in the film is what happens behind the scenes. And I think that's just as important as the end result is what is actually learned and what is made sense of throughout the process. So in answer to some questions, I wanted to find out from your group, the title of your film is High School Reunion. Why did you choose this title?
The story is that the 4 people who were in the coffee shop, they were friends in high school, but when they graduated, they didn't meet up for a while, so that was a reunion from high school. So, yeah.
Okay, excellent. And if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so as I had mentioned earlier, the theme of this workshop was verisimilitude, and each group had to in some way tie their films to this theme. So how did you do that? Was that a struggle?
It was kind of a struggle. We basically did what we expected to, what people would expect to happen versus what it actually is in real life.
So can you give me an example from the film itself, from the story?
Well, my character, Tova, she expected to be this really big lawyer and everything, helping out at a really good law firm, but actually she was just helping out with all of the papers, all the computer work, all of that stuff.
Well, for my character, I was focusing more of the expectations on what she says when she's talking to other people, I guess, and how she portrays that as versus to what actually happens.
All right. Next question. What kind of challenges did you guys face? Because this was a very unusual way to make films, right? So there must have been all kinds of things that sprung up unexpectedly.
Our main challenge was the fact that we had, when we first started, one person didn't show up to the camp. And then the second day, Sammy wasn't here because he had to do a test of something. So we were down to only 3 of us.
There was also some of the story, like when we first started, it was a lot different from what it is now, and a lot of stuff had to be cut or reordered, and it's kind of confusing doing it like without a plan. So yeah.
Right. And how much did your story change day to day? I mean, did you find a kind of linear pattern on the first day, or was it constantly changing?
So we came up with the idea of having separate stories on the first day. So it kind of stuck like that, and that was easier also because the first day we filmed one story, and then the next day we could film more. So it was no, we didn't really face a challenge like that.
Okay. So for example, when you went to the mayor's office yesterday, did you know exactly what you were going to film there, or did you kind of wait to be inspired by the location once you got there, or was it a mixture of both?
So we came up with a story about at the beginning of the day, and then we didn't really know how we were going to film it, so we waited till we got there and like saw everything and got inspired by what we saw. So yeah.
Excellent. And what about finding the costumes and the props?
That was pretty easy. I mean,
It's just up there as a challenge.
really?
Yeah.
Why? Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I guess if we were finding out like what kind of props would match our characters better, but there's that big costume lab, so it isn't hard to find them. But
Excellent. Okay, next slide. All right. So tell us something funny that happened during the experience.
Well, the fact that like when I was trying to get into the Wolverine costume, like it was really hard to get into. Like my arm, I could not find the armhole. Like at one point, the binder I was holding, it was upside down, so I flipped it over, and the pen that was attached hit my glasses.
Yeah. So what else was funny during the shooting?
Everyone's facial reactions, like whenever we would do editing, we would just like pause at random points. Like you could just see, like we all just look so weird half the time.
Yes. And how about the one on the bottom there, the mayor eating candy? Can you tell us about that?
So basically, while we were shooting one of my scenes, we were basically doing this where the mayor was guilty of stealing Halloween candy from MATV. And we had no idea. Like he left while we were like working on it, like for a minute to go get something, and then he came back, and we had no idea what was going on because he didn't like have anything else. So then we got and like started filming, and all of a sudden he just pulls his Tootsie Roll out of his pocket and starts eating it.
Discoveries. So filmmaking is full of discoveries for both the audience when they see a film, but also during the making. What did you guys discover?
well, I haven't done like video editing, so I found out how to do that and a lot of techniques and all that. So that was discovering for me.
What about improvisation?
I think we learned some about that. I mean, we didn't do. I mean, we did more like on the story improvisation, and even then we were like planning it before we started filming it and all that. So isn't a lot of improvisation. But
How about the questions? So if you guys want to stay up here for a moment, any questions at all from the audience?
I know you were talking about improvisation, but I was also wondering, maybe I shouldn't assume, but I assumed that you also did some rehearsal, or did you just go in there and film? Was it more like, almost like guerrilla filmmaking, that you just went in there and just shot and started talking?
Yeah, most of the time was basically we would just go there and just figure out what we wanted to do there, not like have like a little planning, just like have the scene set up, but like all of the talking was like more improvised. And, like we had a basic layout, but that was really it.
What did you think about this theme, verisimilitude? I mean, because do you see examples of that in real life? Does it ring true to you?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Well, in terms of the appearance of reality, was that part of the discussion that you had early on in your group? Did you talk about how it might relate to your own lives?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, we did so our first idea was like sort of to make a dystopia, because that's sort of the main theme of a dystopia. It's in that seems perfect but isn't. So I guess we started talking about which books we were reading. That makes sense. I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
I have a question. What locations inspired you the most?
Well, I guess this is maybe just because it was my character, but for me it was the park, because it was like using it in a different way than you would normally. So
How about you?
Yeah, my character is like the mayor's office because that's where we came up with like most of our ideas because of the location. Like we got to see what was there before we filmed.
I just want to say I normally don't pull out a Tootsie Roll during a meeting, but I think what impressed me the most is in what we do, when we're asked to do something, we typically send it to a committee, and then to another committee, and then to another committee. Then we ordain it and engross it and everything else. I was just so impressed how they came in and did it. I mean, I thought for sure they were going to, I almost, I think, said to one of them, so what day are you coming back to do this? Oh, we're doing it right now. So that's what I found very impressive. And thanks to you.
Now, one thing I'll quickly add is that, I didn't do any teaching at all during this workshop. That was something I kind of mentioned to the students in the beginning. This is not a workshop where they're going to learn how to make films. Because in the case of art, it can't really be taught. So I hope that you guys discovered something about the filmmaking process on your own, just by what you did, what you engaged in. But absolutely, and in response to what the mayor was saying, I think these constraints were pretty tight. It was a 3-day period. You had this theme you had to kind of dissect. You had to find all these different locations. In some cases, the groups went into cafes and different shops to talk to the owners to see if they could film there. Sometimes successful, sometimes unsuccessful. But it was a lot to do. And on top of that, they had to design this PowerPoint on their own. And I just kind of chucked that into the workshop this morning, and they were like, "What? We have to do more?" So yeah, I think, considering that, I mean, it's really, really an incredible job the way you guys used your time and your resources as well. Okay, excellent. So one more. Oh, yes.
I guess just one final comment. I was thinking about Osa's question about, what you learned about I can't even say the word, but I actually think you guys nailed it. I mean, it's about the appearance of reality, and you're talking about, you're lying about what you are doing, and it made me think about maybe like what people do on social media a lot of the time. They make their lives look a lot better than they might really be, and I think you did a really good job of kind of showing that. So, job.
Okay, wonderful. So let's give these filmmakers a round of applause again. Okay, thanks guys. You can go back and sit down. So we will start by screening the next film.
Voyage. In. America.
Dumela. Hello. Ke eme mona mo train stationeng. Ke ne ke botsa fela o mo kae? Hey, is your name Toshibana?
Yeah, it's Tachibana. Like, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you
God,
too.
I can't wait.
I'm
Do you want some water?
not really.
You don't want food too?
Not really.
Life is hard. Don't worry about life.
Tell me something I don't know.
Yes.
Home, sweet home.
Don't be depressed. Oh my god. I told you it'll be fine. And it's a nice place.
So guys, can we please go to that thing, like that thing, like it has a donut on it?
Like Starbucks, like cornucopia, like what one?
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot in Malden.
Dinken donut.
What is donut? What donut?
She mean dunks?
Yeah, she meant dunks.
She meant
Dunks.
And also, like, what is she wearing?
Nobody say that word. Like,
You see what she's wearing? Like, her hat?
oh,
Like her
girl, she
outfit?
have no
Like,
fucking sense. Like, she have no fucking sense.
Now you're excited. You're really excited. Hey, so I have to go to help my mom. So yeah, I'll see you soon. Keep in touch. Yeah, bye.
Well, what seems to be the problem, Miss?
My friends left me all alone. I feel left out in this country. I just want to go home.
Well, sometimes you need to find opportunities where you are. Don't think on the bad past, think of the good future.
Thank you, This country needs more people like you.
Thank you.
I just moved here and yeah, it's a bit tough. I don't know what advice you can give me.
Well, first, I want to welcome you to the Malden Public Schools. And I also want to tell you, no matter where you live in this world, life will always be about hard work and dedication. So if you work hard and you dedicate yourself, good things are going to happen here and wherever else you go.
Today has been a rough day.
Oh my, we should definitely go.
We should get it to
Let's
this
go.
store.
Let's go. Oh my god.
This is
Ice
like
cream.
home, girl.
I know. We should definitely go.
Like, I remember I used to cook this. Like, I'm gonna cook this for you.
I wanna try. I definitely wanna try.
And this,
oh my god,
totally.
that is really good. You should try it. Definitely.
And what
There's a lot
else do
of
we
oil.
need?
I just want to say I'm really sorry for everything you've done so far, so will you please forgive me so we can start fresh?
Yes, I forgive you.
It's a game called chess. Have you ever played it?
A little bit.
Yeah. The unfortunate part is that we're missing a couple pieces. Do you want me to teach you how to play?
Yes.
This piece is called a pawn. It can only move one space forward unless it's its first move. In that case, it can move 2 spaces. This is a knight. The knight can only move in an L shape, so it can move like that, it can move like that, and it can move like that too. And it's the only piece that can jump over other pieces. This is a bishop. The bishop can only move diagonally, so almost like in an X. Then there's the king. The king is the one who you want to protect. If your king gets captured, then the game is over. This piece is the queen. It can move in any direction except for an L, so it can move like that, it can move like that, it can move like that. Then with your king, if a piece
Thank you so much for opening up your space to us. Nice to meet you.
Okay. Now, the title of your film was A Journey in America. Now, I think the title is, or the film, I should say, is pretty self-explanatory. But can you talk a little bit about how you came to this story?
So we decided on the title because it's about a journey of someone coming into America and how they are treated, because in many cases, not only coming from somewhere different, but when we are in schools, we are not treated fairly or we are picked on and made fun of. So we decided, because we also wanted to link our title with verisimilitude. That word.
Well, basically the main theme here is the grass really greener on the other side? We basically tried to show that America isn't always great as they show in TV shows or movies. The streets aren't paved with gold.
And also, money doesn't come from trees. So, like in my country, they think that like when you come to America, you're like really rich. Like they think like you can just get money and then send it to them, and then like everything they want, they can have it. But like if they come to America, they're gonna have to work for it. So, money doesn't come from tree. Yeah, that's pretty much.
And I think the transition that your character went through, Avion, was, I mean, really, really exemplified that. And your performance, I mean, I'm sure you guys felt the same. Performance was really, really quite good. Had you acted before? Yeah? Okay. So you've got some experience. Excellent. Okay, how about the next slide? Okay, some challenges that you guys faced. I'm going to come over here to Alyssa.
So we had a whole bunch of challenges. I would say our main one was like trying to like work together because we all had different ideas and we all like wanted it done like our way. So we had to like work on like cooperating with ours and sometimes using like one person's idea for one part and then using someone else's idea for like a different section, and then understanding ours requests. And also getting locations because we went into the little coffee shop, bubble tea shop that their group used, and we asked for permission to film and they said no. But they got it. And then we were walking by one of the little markets, the Safi one, and they're like, oh yeah, come in and film. Like, our one request is that we don't want to be on TV and you must use our name. I'm like, oh, we can follow those. And then also another challenge was incorporating our free must-have locations into our show.
Basically, some funny stuff that happened was just when we got to Fellsmere Park, there were a lot of ducks. As you can see, ducks. Ducks. Yeah. And in one part, I was the old man throwing breadcrumbs. And yeah, I almost caused a feeding frenzy. Oh, and at the fire station and in a couple others, we did photos and then crazy photos, as you can probably see. Oh, that one.
Yeah, because in the beginning we started out by like scoping out locations. So into the senior center, we started at chessboard. So we are gonna like try to tie in how like every piece means something different. And in the end, we didn't get that. But if this was longer and we had more time, we definitely would have tried to incorporate the chessboard more.
Last slide, what did you guys discover?
So I had actually never been inside the shop that we went to, so that was pretty cool to see something different. And also the second floor of the fire station, I didn't know existed. I thought it was only where the trucks were held. I thought that was it. So never judge a location by what you can see.
AKA the TARDIS.
Also, I didn't even know where City Hall existed, and it's pretty cool how that they're literally running the city in such a small and inconspicuous building. I know. And pond at ducks.
Okay, great. Leave it at that. Questions from the audience?
I want to know, would you do it again?
What? Definitely, yeah.
I paid them to say that. Any other questions? Yes.
I was just wondering if something like this could work with adults too, because I think this is fascinating, and I think there's a lot of potential to have this work to do something like this with adults.
Yeah, thank you. I think it absolutely could work with adults, and I haven't mentioned this, but I do run a cross-cultural filmmaking organization called Zoom In, Zoom Out. And the goal of that is to essentially bring together people that would otherwise never have the chance to collaborate with one another through the filmmaking process. And I think in the case of filmmaking, we automatically assume that not only film, but other collaborative arts, that they're collaborative just because people are working together. But when you think about how films are most often made, especially in the industry, where it's very structured, it's very hierarchical, and everyone has a very specific role, the collaborative element isn't necessarily taken advantage of to the extent that it could be. So I think by taking a more discovery-based approach where you're not working from a script and you're forced to dig inside your own mind and your own sense of being in order to find solutions to the film that you're trying to solve, I think that by default ends up bringing people together, and it can create really, really original work like this. I mean, we had talked on the first day about how the goal wasn't to create good films or what other people might consider to be films of quality, but the goal was to create films that only your group could make. And I think, each of these groups totally pulled that off. I mean, we've never seen films quite like this before. And they were forced to kind of adapt and to listen to each other and to let go of their ego, essentially. And I think that's something that could definitely work with adults, especially in a place like Malden, where people just have very fundamentally different perspectives. So on one hand, it's a matter of coming together and embracing each other's diversity, but on the other hand, trying to understand each other from a different perspective. So absolutely. I would love to do it here, yeah. Any other questions?
Did you define the timing then? Because then if people were arguing so much about the storyline, it's like you had to say, okay, by noon you have to have the storyline, right? By 4 o'clock you have to have the first part or something. You know what I mean? Because otherwise it becomes 2 days of arguing and then 1 day of filming.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I've done this workshop several times now with the program, and I'm learning as I'm going, so it's a very iterative process. I did a workshop last summer where I brought some Japanese students. I lived in Japan for a while, and I brought some Japanese high school students to the Boston area, and they teamed up with Boston-based students. And that was also a 3-day workshop, and the theme of that workshop was in between. And I didn't set as many guidelines as I did for this workshop, and it turned out that the final day was very, very, very intense because we hadn't talked too much about the time. So for this workshop, it was pretty loose. I mean, would you guys say? Right, especially the third day today. Basically, we started at 10 o'clock, and the final cuts had to be done by 5 o'clock. And it was kind of a free day. But yesterday, we were at 2 locations that had to be included in the film, and they knew that they were only at these locations for a certain amount of time. The first day was the same. And we also had a checkpoint yesterday after we went to Fellsmere Park, where we switched the groups. And 2 members of one group joined the other two members of the other group, and they exchanged ideas. So I had different checkpoints kind of set throughout the workshop to give it a kind of cadence and keep things going along. But basically, I mean, as I said, I backed away from teaching, and they kind of did it all on their own. So I think time management was also something that was embedded in the curriculum as well, and skills that hopefully they improved on. Yeah, it's a good question though. Anything else? Okay. Well, one more round of applause for this group. Okay, well, I hope, first of all, the students, I hope you guys that took part, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you made some discoveries and you learned some important things and you enjoyed the process, most importantly. And to the audience, thank you very much for coming out. I hope you enjoyed the films, and I hope you guys were able to find something in the films that you found interesting as well. So hopefully we'll be able to do this again sometime. And if so, we will let you know. Okay, thank you.